This little tutorial is going to continue our discussion of meter and bar lines and measures. For this class, at least for the first several weeks, we're going to limit the possible time signatures that we're going to use. In the big wide world of music, there are lots and lots and lots of different time signatures. We'll get into some of those this semester, but because it's an introductory course, we won't touch everything by any stretch. But the ones we're going to focus on for the first few weeks of class are time signatures that look like this: 4, 4. Remember, the top number of a time signature tells you how many beats in a measure. The bottom number, which is going to be 4 for all of these time signatures we'll deal with for the next few weeks. The bottom 4 indicates that a quarter note equals 1 beat. We learned that in the first video of this series. So 4, 4 means 4 quarter notes, or something equivalent for every measure. Here's a time signature that says 3, 4. Now that means there are 3 beats in every measure. So in a previous video we heard some examples of a waltz. We heard an example of Amazing Grace. There are lots of songs that are written in 3/4 time. And what that top 3 means is 3 beats in every measure. So 3/4, every measure is going to have the equivalent of 3 quarter notes in it, or 3 beats. And finally, we see a time signature that says 2/4. That's one of the other possibilities we'll have in these first few weeks. 2/4 means 2 beats in every measure. And 2 is the top number, 2 beats in a measure. 4, the bottom number, indicates that a quarter note equals 1 beat. So every measure of music will have what adds up to, or the equivalent of, 2 quarter notes. So now let's look at some examples. The example I have right here, we see the time signature 4/4, and then I have 4 measures of music with no notes in them yet. We're going to fix that in a minute. You'll see some exercises like this in the EMT software that we use with this class, and also when we get into the homework, the worksheets might have rhythm exercises like this. And there'll be 2 different types of exercise. One exercise where we add bar lines to music that's already written, and exercises like this where we have blank measures or incomplete measures, and we try to figure out what note or rest is required to complete each measure. So let's take a look at some possibilities. In 4/4 time, I could add one of these notes. Do you remember what that's called? The oval without a stem. It's called a whole note. And a whole note is equal to 4 beats. So if I put a whole note in a measure of music when the time signature is 4/4, that's all I can add. That one whole note will complete the measure. Now my computer software knows that that is true, and you can hear it's not letting me add another whole note. In fact, it won't let me add a half note either, because the software knows that measure is already complete. Here I'm trying to add a quarter note. The computer knows better. But when you're doing this on your own, it's up to you to know the value of each note. So in this next measure, I'm going to add this note. It's got the oval that's open with a stem. That is called, right, a half note. And a half note equals 2 beats. So if I want, I can put 2 of those in. If I try to put more, again, the computer is telling me, nope, can't do it. But when you're doing exercises on EMT, or if you're doing the homework exercises, it's up to you to know. In 4/4 time, we can only have 2 half notes in a measure. Each one of them adds up to 2 beats. The whole note adds up to 4 beats all by itself. So we would play that whole note on beat 1, and hold it for beat 2, hold it for beat 3, and hold it for beat 4. In this next measure, the half note only lasts 2 beats, so we'd play it on beat 1, hold it for beat 2. The second half note we would play at beat 3 and hold it for the fourth beat. And finally, with quarter notes, these last for only one beat each. So I can add 4 of them in a measure if I like. Can't add any more. And then finally, you need to know, as you probably have already figured out, that you can have combinations. In 4/4 time, a whole note is going to fill up the whole measure. But we could have combinations of half notes and quarter notes in a measure. If I wanted, I could put a quarter note in here on beat 1 and another quarter note on beat 2, and then add a half note. That fills up the measure. Quarter note is the first beat, this quarter note is the second beat, and this half note would fill up beats 3 and 4. Does that make sense?